What's up, everybody? It is a Blue Drake, and today we're going to be talking about something that has never been done right. It has never been done right. I have played basically every iteration of this kind of game possible, and it has never been the kind of game that I've wanted to play. And I'm hoping, oh God, I'm hoping that this could be the one. Now, I don't know if it could be the one, and honestly, we live in a time where I think so many people have been so disappointed so many times that there's nothing I'm going to say in this video that's going to try and hype you up that this is going to be the one. Because, quite frankly, I don't know. There's other games out there where I know the development teams better, I know, the project better, I know the likelihood of it being good better, but this is a project, this is an idea that has never been executed properly, in my opinion. I actually think the closest that has ever been done was possibly, you could say, Stormworks, but Stormworks is very pacifist, and nothing against them. That's just the kind of game that it is. It's a very pacifist game, and I don't want a pacifist game. I'm Blue Drake. I want to rip people's heads out of their skulls. I don't know what that means actually, because it's kind of, those are synonyms, but that makes it sound even more brutal. What we're looking at today is the game Starbase. That is the announcement trailer that has been released recently, and let me tell you the kind of game that we're talking about here, because I'm going to title this video something along those lines, like this game's never been done right, or I'd want this, or something. And let me tell you exactly the kind of game that I want. The exact kind of genre that this is from. In fact, even our own community created a game that was an attempt to make the version of this game that we kind of want to play. It's still in development. It's free. It's not three-dimensional. It's actually two-dimensional. So it's in a way it's a completely different game, kind of more like FTL. But this is the kind of concept that I've wanted to see. There's lots of other games like it, like Space Engineers, or even some offshoots of that game. There was a couple of games like Space Engineers, like Planetary Pioneers, I think that was what it was called, as well as some other ones, but none of them really did what we want. And what we want is this. We want an open world space game where everything is destructible, where you can build ships piece by piece with all of the internals, from the wiring to the fuel, so when a single bullet goes through a ship, it severs a fuel line or it explodes a reactor. We want that, but we want competitive multiplayer. We want warfare. We don't want just a sandbox. There's many great sandbox games out nowadays that create this kind of sandbox experience. And I think the only demographic that's left, the only people who are left that want to, that haven't gotten really what they wanted, is the competitive scene for sandbox games, for voxel-based sandbox games, perhaps you could say. And if this game succeeds, if this game becomes what it is showcasing here, hopefully it will become that. In fact, I'm going to go ahead. Let's just play this trailer with the sound on so you can hear the developers themselves explain what this will hopefully be. This is Starbase, and I want to talk about the potential of this, primarily because first I want to go over the details of what this is from a feature standpoint. And then I want to talk about the potential that it has and hopefully a lot of the things that it can overcome. This is a concept that has been a long time in the making. And I'm not just talking about with Starbase, I'm talking about with everything. I think the community that plays these kinds of games, in our head, we all have the kind of game that we want to play. When you look at No Man's Sky, when you look at Star Citizen, when you look at Space Engineers, when you look at even FTL, all of these games that everybody from this community plays, I think there's one thing that we want. We want a game maybe similar to Space Engineers or something like that, but we want a big focus on competitive multiplayer. We want a stable experience where the game runs well enough and is smooth enough where we can have competitive starship battles where it's not about the sandbox or hey, look at how pretty this is. It's let's get on a ship and defeat the enemy, and that's a really difficult thing to do with a game like this. When you look at the level of destruction, even in games like Space Engineers, when you look at all of these elements and how complicated all of that is especially to get working stable and predictably, that is a massive hurdle to get over. But every single year, I have been seeing us get closer. I have been seeing it. I have seen more. I have seen more studios get further and further to the point where I actually believe this is possible. Now, let me get a few things out of the way because I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, this looks too good to be true. Let me tell you a couple things which may make you not as happy about this, but I actually think might increase the chances of this actually working. The first thing is that this is a custom engine. So this isn't Unreal Engine 4, this isn't Unity. This is a engine that has been built from the ground up specifically for this purpose. And I think you, with the amount of elements and the amount of complexity involved, I think that's the only way to do it. Granted, that's a massive investment of resources and time, but I think that's the only way you could actually pull this off. Now, with that said, an additional thing, and this is going to be the thing that might turn some people off, this is going to be an MMO. There was another game called Dual Universe that was kind of pitching a similar idea, although it hasn't come out yet. I haven't really even looked into it that much since. But Starbase is going to be an MMO, and what that means is there is very likely not going to be any mod support. There's not going to be any community-hosted servers. At least that is not the intention currently. And that while that sucks, because I love community-hosted servers and I love mod support. At the same time, when you have something that is this absurdly complex, I think some of the only ways to really make the experience not explode in your face is if somebody controls if a studio controls both the server side and the client side experience. You can't really risk anything when you're trying to pull off something this complicated. So while that kind of sucks, I actually see the rationale. And another thing is this game is actually, from what I've seen, it is going further than games like Space Engineers. So Space Engineers is kind of like Minecraft in space a little bit, whereas this game seems to be like a blend between, let's say, maybe like oh God, what's the name of it now? Stormworks. It's kind of a blend between Stormworks, but it's also something completely different because the destruction in this is considerably more detailed. But the way they're doing the destruction, I think I understand why they'd be able to pull it off because it's kind of fake destruction. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends. For instance, from what I've seen, you can't bend things. So, for instance, like let's say you've got like a stick of metal. The metal will not bend. It's just a voxel kind of like static object where you erase or you replace kind of like the material in it, if that makes any sense. It's almost more like a let me sum it up for this way for people who don't really understand the technical aspect of it. It's almost more like transparency versus actually destroying something. So when you shoot a hole, like you put a block down, and that block is its own thing, and when you shoot a hole through it, You can see through the block. You might even be able to put stuff through the block, but it doesn't really change the fact that there's a block there. And you'll kind of see this in the repair mechanics as well. You're just kind of untransparencing the block. Now, don't get me wrong, that is not a bad thing at all. I think that's honestly probably one of the smartest things about this game, and the only way that they could probably pull it off. And again, I can only see so much. I don't have access to the source code. All I have is these videos, so that is all conjecture. But let's take a look at the kind of the detail of this.
We believe that you deserve to not only be able to see the things you've created in detail, but also the destruction you've caused. Starbase uses a hybrid of vertex and voxel technology, which allows you to see damage in a more realistic level of detail. This means that you can damage objects exactly the way you want to, whether it be, for instance, shooting it full of holes, precisely cutting it, or shooting through layers of plating. As can be seen here, the level of detail also allows the angle you're shooting from to be seen in the damage done.
So, like, for instance, with this effect right here, like, they have this big chunk, but then they have all of these little holes. And again, this is all just conjecture. The holes aren't as much of a physics simulation as much as it is just kind of like a transparency effect. There might be other things that go with it as well. Like, I'm sure that's an oversimplification, but I think that's one of the reasons they're able to keep this as simplistic as possible. It is pretty interesting that you can cut a hole in something, though, and have that little piece come out. But again, I think that's going to be... I think that's just a very clever effect. Like, for instance, I don't think you could cut a piece out of this and then take the piece that you cut out and then nail it to something else, if that makes sense. I don't believe that would be possible. If it was, that would be crazy.
There's also another type
but I actually think it's a good thing that it's not that way, because if it was that way, I don't think they'd be able to pull this off in a multiplayer environment without, like, massive amounts of, like, lag and latency and
damage
problems.
called fracture damage. This can be seen here, where the damaged object gets broken up into many pieces. The type of damage caused depends on various factors, such as the weapon used or the material of the damaged object.
And what I think here is this fracture damage. I actually think that this creates, and I actually think that's kind of the difference. I think the fracture damage actually creates these physics simulated pieces, whereas like the bullet holes and cutting stuff out of the thing, it creates more of like a client side effect of just kind of like poof, and it disappears, but it doesn't create like a physics object.
Our voxel objects can be both
yeah, see, that's exactly what I'm
fractured and cut at the same time. Now on to
which is still pretty impressive.
The destruction of bigger things, such as giant spaceships. Take this Empire gunship, for instance. It consists of thousands of small pieces, and each of them can be destroyed individually. This means that the bigger and the more detailed a ship is, the more detailed you can be in its destruction. The ship can literally be blown to bits and pieces, where each individual piece can be salvaged and, for example, taken for your own ship. As you may know, a huge part of Starbase is being able to be as creative as you wish. However, the creativity isn't only limited to creating things. So here are a few different ideas for destroying a ship that are possible for you to enjoy. You can cut off pieces of it.
Again, see, when you cut off the pieces, I think they just kind of like
cut off a piece
poof.
and take it to use on your own ship.
Wait, hold up. Shit.
Make your own doors.
Hold on, let me see that. No, go back! Ah, see, I can't see that much!
Ship. Make your own doors and windows. Cut it in half. Leave some graffiti. Chop it into pieces. Or just fill it with holes with the help of your friends. Until this has turned to this.
Okay. See, I'm gonna be honest. There's so many ways that this could be done that it's just, it kind of is like... How are you doing this? I want to know. I hope this works.
Different weapons that can be used to inflict different types of damage, as well as different types of materials that react to damage. For instance, some materials are harder to damage or fracture, and some weapons are able to pierce multiple layers easier than others. You can try these out and see for yourself. And finally,
I really want to get in here and just start like figuring out how, like, where the weak
If you've
points of
been
this system
inspired by
is.
this video and gone a little too far with your destruction,
This is the part that I'm talking about.
no need to worry. You can use the building tool to repair the damage you've done and forget it ever even happened. Or at least until the next time it gets destroyed.
And that's what I'm kind of hoping is the simple part of this, is there's going to be a big difference between, like, when you look at...
Until the building tool to repair the damage you've
this
done
is kind
and
of just
forget it ever even happened.
kind of untransparencing the holes and everything.
Or at least until the next time it
I hope. I have no idea. See, the only thing that just throws my whole theory into the goddamn trash can is when they do this. I mean, you guys know which part. I actually didn't see that
cut
until
off a
just
piece
now.
and take it to use on your own ship.
Fuck! I have no idea then! What is going on?
It to use on your own ship?
Dude, okay, so that's the point. That's why this is so interesting to me. This is so interesting. I have no idea how they're going to pull this off, but I think we can all agree this is what we have wanted for so long. This is a wet dream. And there has been so many people that said they could do this, and then couldn't really do it. But this is the most convincing demonstration that I have ever seen that I also can't get my hands on. Or, you know, I want to see how this performs when you have like 100 players or what. Because the other thing that they're saying is that it's going to be an MMO, which means, you know, what's the player density going to be like? How is that going to affect it? That's so many questions. I mean, but I guess that's good. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons this is so cool, is because it's proposing something that if they can pull this off, and what they're showing here is making us ask, like, how the hell did they do that? How the hell did they do that? That's the cool part of this, is
are able to pierce multiple layers easier.
I feel like I kind of almost look at game development almost like being a magician as well. Like, I feel like a good game project, when somebody shows it off, it's almost like a magician, and they kind of like show like a sleight of hand. And if the first thing your brain does is like, how the fuck did they do that? And you start trying to figure it out, that's kind of a sign of a good game, in my opinion. Now, the question is it how much sleight of hand is it? And how much magic is it? How is it put together? God,
and finally,
I have so many questions. So, that brings us to our next video. They have not released that much of this.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another Starbase video.
And not very many people have been watching this either, which is kind of crazy. You'd expect this to have blown up way harder than it has.
This video is going to be all about one of your most crucial companions in space: spaceships. Starbase allows you to have endless possibilities when it comes to spaceships, since you can either buy a ready-made one, or design and build your very own ship with exactly the features that you need.
This is a big thing that we've been suggesting for a long time. This is something that we were suggesting to space engineers as well. Incorporating the purchasing of already completed ships into the game. Because there's a lot of games out there where you can... And I think that's what Stormworks did really, really well, is the fact that you could purchase previously created ships. And I think that Stormworks probably could have even taken it further in terms of like filtering which ships were actually good, having more direct access to the marketplace instead of having to like manually. Like, we should be able to get to a point where you can just go up to a terminal, press a button, and then see all of the top ships that you can afford and then purchase that. I think that that is a big element, a big missing piece in this kind of game that a lot of other games haven't really nailed. It was something that we were trying to do in Iron Armada, but also Iron Armada is just a community project of people that are super enthusiastic, but this is a whole different level.
But before you get started with building your own ship, it's good to know what they're made out of. So here are a few things that are crucial to have in any functional spaceship. One of the most essential parts of a ship, whether it flies or not, is the hull, which keeps the ship together. The basis of the hull is a frame made of beams, which looks something like this, but changes depending on the shape of the ship. The frame has the outer plating connected to it, which protects the ship from damage, as well as the inner plating, which helps the ship withstand weapon damage and makes the interior look nicer. Also, it might be a good idea to add some doors and windows to your hull for an added sight bonus and ease of access. Starbase features a complex durability calculation, which requires the ship's hull to be correctly built from correct materials and to be reasonably intact in order for it to survive spaceflight.
I just realized I think it's a really good idea that they had robots, because one of the things that they probably won't have is oxygen or like pressurized rooms, which is another incredibly complex thing that would probably really screw with development. But hey, since you're all robots, you don't have to worry about that
build a
anymore.
strong hull. I'm
actually not against that.
That stands between you and the dangers of space, such as debris, radiation from warp travel, enemy attacks, and bad piloting skills. Another essential for any ship is the generator, the heart of the ship. It's used to power mostly everything in the ship, so it's better to place it somewhere out of harm's way. Generally, the generator consists of a generator unit, a cooling board with cooling cells, a fuel chamber with a fuel rod, and a socket board. This particular generator also has a few enhancers attached to it, which are optional but can be used to increase the generator's efficiency. Furthermore, depending on the amount of power needed, the generator can consist of multiple of each of the items listed, which means its size and composition can vary. Now, to be able to actually fly the ship as well, there are a few more things that are needed, and one of these are the thrusters. The thrusters are what enable the ship to move in space, and their number, types, and positions define which directions the ship can be flown and with what speeds. Thrusters require power and propellant to function, so make sure they're connected to a power source and a gas container. Next, you will need a command center, which is what holds all the controls for the ship's movements, and may look something like this but can be customized for your ship's needs. Then, a flight control unit, which receives the input from the controllers and forwards the info to the main flight computer, which in turn combines information of several FCUs and sends the data to the thrusters. Now, if proper cabling, electricity, fuel intake, and cooling are also taken care of, your ship will be ready for takeoff. So, these things I've mentioned are only the essentials, but there are of course many other optional things that you can add to your spacecraft. These include furnishings such as lamps to bring light into your ship and chairs for a more comfortable flight experience, a transmitter and receiver system, tractor beams to move objects, a mining laser, and of course different kinds of mounted weapons for space warfare, among many other things. What's more, you can use Starbase's in-game programming language to customize your ship even further, as it can be used, for example, to make your ship fly and land on autopilot, as can be seen here. As for the actual building of the ship, there are a few options available. One option is to build your ship from scratch, which allows you to have complete freedom over what you wish your ship to be. You can also design a blueprint for your ship and have it made based on that, or modify an existing ship or shipwreck to your liking. And of course, there's always an option to just buy a finished ship. In any case, whether you decide to build your own ship or buy one, you will be able to get your very own ship which will fit your specific needs, whether they be a small and fast ship for exploration or scouting enemy territory, a ship with plenty of space for transporting cargo, a ship with plenty of seats for transporting other players, a giant ship with mounted weapons fit for warfare, or anything else you can think of, as in space, not even the sky is the limit.
Slightly cringy joke, but I'm gonna roll with it because it's not untrue. So that's Starbase. That's this project, and a couple other things that apparently we found out. Again, all of this is conjecture. I'm pretty sure this is confirmed, but I also believe that this game is going to be. I know some people are going to be asking about the physics. From what I have heard, there's actually going to be air resistance in space. So unlike Space Engineers, where there's a top speed limit, there's just going to be kind of a fictional, invisible. It's going to be kind of more like X-Wing I guess. Actually, I'm not even sure if that's really a good. Well, I mean, not many of you are going to know this, except for the ones who actually play it. But it's actually going to be pretty similar to Iron Armada, and I actually think that's a good thing. Iron Armada specifically made this decision because I think from a balancing, gameplay, and technical standpoint, that actually makes the most sense. It's better. I'm sure there might be other games out there, maybe eventually, like Kerbal Space Program, that create like full-on orbital mechanic. But you have to keep in mind that's not. If you let me put it this way: if you want to play a game like Homeworld, if you want to play like Homeworld in first person, you kind of need the ships to fly like they fly in Star Wars. And again, also like Star Wars. Star Wars does not have realistic flight physics at all in space. Like Star Wars is literally World War II in space, and it's the same with Homeworld. Homeworld is also World War II in space. And I think if you want to emulate that actual gameplay, as well as also protecting from a lot of like technical issues, having kind of like an invisible dampening like atmosphere basically is the best way to go, because that way you're not going to have somebody going at like light speed and then they go through a ship and then they just explode it, which is also a problem with like when it comes to physics, and there's a lot of balancing things where it's hard, and also you're never really gonna you would never have a dogfight like you would never. I think the first video showed like a proper dogfight. If you had true physics, that would never happen. It would never happen. So I'm sure there's some people that might also be frustrated with that and be like, why not real space physics? I mean, I don't know. That's why. Because it would be Kerbal Space Program. It would be Kerbal Space Program, and I'm not sure if you've noticed, but Kerbal Space Program does not have very good dogfighting mechanics. Like that's not really how Kerbal Space Program works. So yeah. Okay, that's it. Please God be good. For the love of God, please make this game be good. I am a little bit sad that I wouldn't be able to host my own community server for it. I am kind of sad that it's going to be an MMO. I have a feeling that it's going to have like microtransactions and whatnot. Maybe it'll kind of be, what's that other game? Crossout, I think, something like that. It might end up being something like Crossout. But quite frankly, I don't care. like if it actually can pull this off, I do not care. I would play it anyways. And in fact, actually, that would be kind of nice, because then Iron Armada would still be able to have, mod support and have a place where, there's a reason to play it, because it would have community servers and be like a fun little mini game, which is exactly what it is. But if this can pull off being what it is, I would be all about that 100%. So that's it. That is this game, Starbase. Please, for the love of God, be good. Please be good. Please be good. Please, please be good. Please, 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 please be good. I have been hurt too many times. Please do not hurt me again. Please be good. Please. Please be good. Please. And it's actually kind of nice. There's literally nothing in this other than the fact that I am really confused how they're going to handle the physics, and they are doing some things that if they can get this to work in a 100 player or 200 player or whatever environment, I'm not saying it's impossible, because I know that it's possible. I know that they're going to have to do some really tricky things in order to pull it off, and I want to figure out what those tricky things are. But a lot of the things that I thought that they would be doing to be tricky to make it work, I don't understand how they're doing some of the things that they're doing, because I was like, oh, well, they could do this, but then you wouldn't be able to do this, and then they do that, and then I'm like, shit! So what are they doing? Like, what? What's the trick? What's the tricky thing that's being done to make this work? What is it? I don't know. It's crazy. This is a really good presentation as well. I mean, as far as I know, like there was some previous games that were kind of showing off some stuff, and I really got confused because they were using marketplace. They actually took marketplace meshes and then recreated the meshes inside of the game, but with by actually building it by like panel by panel. I don't know why they did. I guess that might have saved them time or something. And obviously that hasn't been done here, unless I'm crazy and somebody wants to say that it has. But this is really good. Like, it looks good. It's got that polish. It's got that look. It's got that feel. Like, this is from an aesthetic standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, this is what I want. The only question remaining is, I guess the only two questions is it gonna work? And if so, how the fuck is it? How the hell is it gonna work? Okay, that's it. All right, thanks so much for watching, guys. I love you. Please be good. Please, please, God, please, God, please, God. God, please be good. God, please, 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 please. Okay, I love you. Bye.